A fist crashed across my wife's face, middle of the morning, under the burning Texas sun. But this wasn't just any woman. She's one of the internet's biggest creators. A vlogger with millions of fans, who built her career filming workouts, morning routines, and behind-the-scenes clips for a global audience. People knew her for her laughter, her positivity, and her colorful editing style. That day, though, none of her subscribers were watching. There were no sponsorships, no cameras rolling, no jump cuts or transitions. Just real life. And in real life, her face had just been split open by a man wearing a vest labeled "Compliance." She wasn't looking for trouble. She wasn't filming content. She was in our yard, wearing an oversized gardening shirt, hair tied back, dirt streaked across her cheek, tugging at weeds by our rose bushes. A Tuesday as normal as any other. Until she spotted the neon red slip of paper taped to our fence. Violation notice. Fence, 2 inches too tall. Flag display, unapproved. Fines escalating in 72 hours. She muttered under her breath, pulled out her phone, and began recording. That's who she is, someone who documents, someone who keeps receipts. Being married to a Navy SEAL for 15 years had sharpened her instincts. Never walk blind into conflict. Always gather evidence. And that's when they arrived. 2 men in tactical vests cut across our lawn like they owned it. The first one, Vince, looked like a nightclub bouncer who'd eaten one too many burgers, sweat dripping down his vest. The second, Tony, had arms full of muscle but eyes empty of discipline, his fake badge dangling crookedly on his chest. "Ma'am," Vince barked, "stop recording this enforcement action immediately." His voice cracked like a mall cop trying to audition for a Hollywood role. But my wife? She didn't even blink. She'd stared down hundreds of thousands of YouTube comments, trolls, critics, internet bullies. 2 sweaty wannabes in knockoff tactical gear didn't scare her. "This is my property," she said calmly. "You're on camera." That should have been the end. But instead, it was the beginning of war. Tony's jaw clenched. His fists curled. And in one violent swing, he launched forward. The punch echoed across the cul-de-sac like a gunshot. My wife's head snapped sideways, her phone spinning into the grass. Blood blossomed on her lip. Neighbors froze behind curtains. The world seemed to hold its breath. And inside me, something broke. 3 combat deployments. 15 years of marriage. I had never seen her hurt like this. The rage that tore through me wasn't wild, it was cold, sharp, unrelenting. The kind of fury that doesn't shout. It finishes. The screen door slammed behind me as I stepped out barefoot, wearing only an old Marine Corps t-shirt and jeans. Posture balanced. Breathing steady. And in that moment, every person on that street knew, this fight wasn't over. The punch that shook the neighborhood, the sound was still echoing when I hit the porch. My wife staggered, blood staining the edge of her gardening gloves. Her phone, cracked but still recording, lay in the grass. Vince smirked like he'd just won something. Tony's chest heaved, his fists trembling as if he wanted round 2. What they didn't realize yet was that their fight wasn't with her anymore. It was with me. I didn't have a uniform anymore, but posture is its own kind of weapon. Shoulders squared. Feet planted. Breathing controlled. The air itself shifted. "I'm a Navy SEAL," I said. Not loud. Not bragging. Just fact. "You just assaulted my wife. Bad decision." For the first time, their swagger cracked. Vince blinked, a flicker of doubt darting across his eyes. Tony hesitated, his fists loosening just slightly. And then I dropped my voice into the tone I hadn't used since the battlefield. Cold. Final. A command that stops men in their tracks. "Stand down. Hands where I can see them. Last warning." But instead of surrender, Vince lowered his head and charged. Vince's boots thundered across the grass like a linebacker chasing a trophy. His bulk moved fast, but without precision, just a wall of weight and anger. To him, size was strength. To me, it was leverage waiting to be used. I pivoted left. Years of training turned the move automatic. His shoulder missed me by a mile. Momentum carried him forward, his boot snagged the edge of the porch step, and gravity finished what I didn't have to. The sound of his face colliding with the wooden riser was sickening. A crunch, then a howl of pain. Blood streamed from his nose instantly, splattering across the grass. He rolled over, groaning, hands clutching his face, his vest zipper straining against the sudden heave of his chest. Neighbors gasped from behind their curtains. Curtains shifted. Phones came out. Everyone knew they had just witnessed the moment swagger turned to weakness. And then Tony decided to play hero. Tony swung with fists that belonged in a bar fight, not a battlefield. Wide, clumsy haymakers, each one telegraphed so far ahead I could have written them down in a notebook. One swing whistled past my ear. Another cut empty air where my jaw had been a second before. The third was slower still. I ducked once. Twice. Sidestepped. And then gravity did the work for me. Tony stumbled forward, colliding headfirst with our sprinkler system. The nozzle snapped sideways with a hollow crack that echoed through the yard. His jaw smacked the iron pipe so hard the sound made the neighbors flinch. His groan turned to garbled nonsense, syllables mashed together like a toddler trying to speak through a mouthful of marbles. Water sprayed from the broken sprinkler, arching over him in cruel rhythm. Drool mixed with the water running down his chin. His tactical vest looked more like a Halloween costume than authority now. Both men, down in under 30 seconds. And all of it? On camera. My wife staggered forward, her cheek already swelling red, her lips split but her hand steady as she scooped up her phone. The screen was cracked but still recording, catching every detail, the punch, the blood, the takedowns. That's my wife, I thought, pride burning through the fury. Bruised, bleeding, but unbroken. She whispered into the phone, her voice trembling but steady, still rolling. The neighborhood had gone silent, like a courtroom before the verdict. Mrs. Rodriguez's hose hung limp in her hand, water puddling at her feet. Agnes peeked through lace curtains, her iPad recording every second. Carl from next door froze mid-step with his wrench, mouth open like he'd seen a ghost. Nobody rushed to help the so-called officers. Nobody wanted to side with men who just punched a schoolteacher turned vlogger in her own yard. Vince groaned louder, clutching his nose. "You broke my nose." His voice cracked like a teenager caught sneaking home late. The irony stung harder when his vest zipper burst open, revealing a shirt underneath that read, "World's Greatest Dad." Tony slumped against the sprinkler post, his jaw crooked, words tumbling out in mushy nonsense. His tough guy mask had dissolved into a pathetic mess. And that's when I saw it. A phone glowing in the grass. Vince's phone. Screen cracked, buzzing with a fresh message. I picked it up. A single notification pulsed across the display. "Boss lady, use force if needed." J timestamp, 2 minutes before the punch. I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't random. This wasn't two idiots with too much free time. This was orders. My wife's swollen cheek brushed against my shoulder as she leaned closer, her eyes gleaming sharp despite the pain. "That's our first lead," she whispered. And in that moment, I knew, this wasn't about fences anymore. This was war. Sirens in the distance. The street was frozen in shock when I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. My voice was steady, clipped, trained. "This is Jack Harper, 2147, Magnolia Drive. 2 men assaulted my wife on private property. Both need medical attention. And bring law enforcement, real ones. No theatrics. Just facts." That's how you cut through chaos. The dispatcher confirmed. And then, in the silence after I hung up, a new sound crept into the neighborhood. Distant at first, then sharper with every second, sirens. The crowd shifted. Agnes pressed her iPad closer to the glass, her lips moving in a nervous prayer. Mrs. Rodriguez muttered something in Spanish, clutching her watering can like a weapon. Even Carl, who had retreated toward his garage, peeked out again, his face pale. The wannabe enforcers moaned on the lawn. Vince was still clutching his face, blood soaking his vest. Tony slumped against the broken sprinkler, jaw sagging wrong. And my wife? She stood with her phone steady, swollen cheek burning red, filming everything. Enter Ray Delgado. Just as the sirens closed in, another voice cut across the lawn. "Jesus, Jack. What the hell happened here?" Ray Delgado strode toward us in cargo shorts and a faded Hawaiian shirt, the unofficial uniform of retirement. But I knew better than anyone, Ray wasn't just any neighbor. 25 years as a cop before Magnolia Drive became his escape. He scanned the scene like a detective walking into a crime drama. His eyes landed on Emily, my wife, her cheek swollen, lips split, phone in hand. Then they shifted to the 2 broken men on the ground. "These idiots leave more evidence than a drunk burglar," Ray muttered. I handed him Vince's phone. The message still glowed on the screen. "Boss lady. Use force if needed. J." Ray whistled low, eyes narrowing. "That's your smoking gun right there." Real cops, real problems. The paramedics arrived first. Their white ambulance sheets made the tactical vests look ridiculous, grown men strapped down like toddlers who'd lost a fight at recess. Vince wailed about his nose. Tony tried to mumble threats, but his jaw made every word collapse into mush. Then the cruisers rolled in. Blue and red lights painted Magnolia Drive in harsh stripes. The real officers stepped out, and one look at my wife's face told me everything. They weren't going to shrug this off as just a dispute. Assault. Impersonating authority. Conspiracy. Statements were gathered. Phones exchanged hands. My wife replayed the video, every second of the assault clear. I handed over the glowing message from Vince's phone. The officer's expressions shifted from skepticism to grim recognition. Ray leaned closer, his voice low. "Community Compliance Group. That's what those patches mean. Not police. Not even legit contractors. Just hired muscle Jennifer Allen's been using. The name hit like a hammer. Jennifer Allen. HOA president. The queen of fines, slips, and petty rules. You're telling me she ordered this? I asked. Ray's eyes hardened. Looks like it. And if that's true, Jack, this isn't about fences anymore. This is conspiracy. Maybe worse. I clenched my fists. My wife slid her hand into mine. Her grip was tight, steady. She tracked us, she whispered. She planned this. That wasn't random. And I knew she was right. Jennifer Allen hadn't just declared war on me. She declared war on the whole neighborhood. The neighborhood awakens the cruisers left, but the street didn't go quiet. It buzzed, like a hive that had just been struck with a stick. Neighbors whispered, heads together, voices low but urgent. Phones passed hand to hand, screens glowing with shaky recordings. Nobody was defending Jennifer Allen. Nobody was defending the enforcers. The silence that once let her thrive was breaking apart. Agnes, the widow with lace curtains and too many cats, finally stepped out onto her porch. Her iPad clutched to her chest like a shield. Her voice was small but strong. I filmed everything, she announced. If Jennifer thinks she can run this neighborhood like a dictatorship, she's wrong. It was the first time Agnes had raised her voice in years. Even Mrs. Rodriguez stopped watering her tulips to nod in agreement. Carl, though, lingered at the edge of his garage, wrench still in hand. Sweat glistened on his forehead despite the evening breeze. His eyes darted between us and Jennifer's house. Fear, or guilt, I couldn't tell which. The envelope that night, just as we were settling into an uneasy quiet, the doorbell rang. My wife opened the door. Agnes stood there, clutching a thick manila envelope like it was radioactive. Her hands trembled, but her chin was set with resolve I'd never seen in her before. I can't keep this anymore, she whispered. We brought her inside. She sat at our kitchen table, glancing at the windows as if Jennifer's shadow might be lurking outside. And then she confessed. I helped her, Agnes admitted. Jennifer made me feel important. Said I was her eyes and ears. Asked me to take notes, who came home late, who had guests, who left bins out too long. I thought it was gossip. But today, after what they did, I can't stay quiet. She slid the envelope across the table. Inside, dozens of photos. Pages torn from a notebook, copied on her phone. Neat columns, tidy handwriting. Dates, addresses, fines. But it wasn't just HOA notes. It was personal. Too personal. The control system Emily, my wife, spread the pages across the table. Her bruised cheek made her look like a fighter, not a victim. She read aloud, her voice sharp despite the swelling. Mrs. Chen. Purple mailbox. $500 fine. Divorce filing noted. Rodriguez family. Flag height violation. $300. Custody battle, leverage. Delgado. Barking dog. $75. Retired cop. Limited income, pressure point. My stomach turned cold. This wasn't management. This was intelligence gathering. Blackmail disguised as HOA policy. Agnes's voice cracked. She called it her control system. Said every community needs pressure points to stay in line. I believed her. I thought she was helping us keep order. But she wasn't. She was keeping power. Ray arrived just in time to see the spread. He scanned one page, let out a low whistle, then met my eyes. This isn't HOA business. This is racketeering. Jennifer Allen's running a control network, not a neighborhood. My fists clenched so hard my knuckles went white. And she ordered those thugs to punch my wife. Emily touched my arm, grounding me. Her voice was steady. We've got proof now, Jack. Hard proof. Agnes burst into tears. I didn't know she'd go this far. I swear I didn't. I leaned forward, my tone softer. You did the right thing. Tonight, everything changes. And I meant it. The silent house after Agnes's confession, my eyes locked on Jennifer Allen's house down the block. Curtains drawn. Porch empty. Lights out. But silence can be louder than noise. And in that silence, everyone knew she was watching. Ray crossed his arms, jaw tight. She won't stop here, Jack. Trust me. I've dealt with her type before. Jennifer doesn't back down. She doubles down. Emily slipped her bruised cheek against my shoulder. Her voice was low but fierce. Then we hit back harder. I nodded, the weight of her words settling heavy in my chest. This wasn't about a fence or a fine anymore. It was about control, ours, hers, the whole neighborhood's. And she had just fired the first real shot. The first divide by morning, Magnolia Drive didn't look like the street I'd lived on for a decade. It looked like a fault line ready to split. On one side, neighbors whispered about standing up, about exposing Jennifer once and for all. Agnes was already passing around copies of her photos like they were underground flyers. Mrs. Rodriguez swore she'd testify, her watering can doubling as a badge of courage. But others stayed quiet. Carl barely left his garage, his eyes shadowed. A few houses down, blinds stayed shut, cars never moved, but I knew they were Jennifer loyalists. People who owed her favors. People she had leverage on. The neighborhood wasn't united. It was fractured. And fractures break under pressure. Emily set up her camera, not for her channel, not for content, but to record everything. If they come again, she said, the world's going to see it. Jennifer's message. It didn't take long. That evening, just as the cicadas started buzzing, a plain envelope slid under our front door. No knock. No footsteps. Just silence, then the envelope. Inside, a single piece of paper. Typed. Precise. Mr. Harper, you've made a mistake. What happened yesterday was unfortunate, but it was provoked. Withdraw your complaint. Delete your footage. Or next time, we won't stop at warnings. J.A. Emily read it twice, her hands trembling, then passed it to me. Her face hardened. She threatened us. In writing. Ray scanned it, his expression grim. She's escalating. And threats in writing? That's evidence. But Jack, if she's desperate enough to send this, she's desperate enough to follow through. My jaw clenched. My gut burned with fury, but my voice stayed level. She thinks fear will shut us up. She doesn't know us. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and set it on the table. This isn't a neighborhood dispute anymore, I said, steady as steel. This is war. Rallying the street the next morning, Emily uploaded a private link to her footage, sending it to Ray, Agnes, and a handful of neighbors she trusted. Within an hour, our phones buzzed with replies. I'm in. About time someone stood up to her. Tell me what to do. For the first time, Jennifer's power cracked. The fear that kept people silent was breaking. We gathered in our backyard as the sun dipped low, the air sticky with late summer heat. Not a block party, something heavier. Faces were tense, voices hushed. But there was fire in their eyes. Ray spread Agnes's documents across the patio table. She's been blackmailing half the street. But now? Now we've got witnesses. Photos. Letters. Even her enforcers tied to her name. We build this case right, Jennifer Allen doesn't just lose her HOA seat, she loses everything. Emily raised her phone, recording the moment. We're done being her victims. From now on, we fight back. Together. The group nodded. Neighbors who once waved politely now stood shoulder to shoulder. And for the first time since I moved into Magnolia Drive, it felt like a community. The shadow on the porch later that night, as the neighborhood lights winked out one by one, I walked the perimeter of our yard. Old habits. Training I never shook. That's when I saw it, across the street, under the pale glow of a street lamp. Jennifer Allen. She stood on her porch, arms folded, staring straight at me. No words. No movement. Just that cold, knowing stare. The kind of stare that said, you may think you've won tonight. But I own the board. And I've still got pieces to play. My fists tightened. My heart slowed, steady and deliberate, just like in combat. Emily stepped onto the porch beside me, her bruised cheek catching the light. She followed my gaze and whispered, she's not stopping, is she? No, I said, voice low, unshakable. This was just her opening move. Jennifer turned, slipped back inside, and closed her door. And in that silence, under the weight of her shadow, I knew, the real war for Magnolia Drive had only begun.